Amari ora tātou. Whakataka te hae ki te tuna. Whakataka hae ki te advice. Kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tāu. E hia ki ana i te atakura, te tio, te huka, te hauhu, tihei, Māori.
Sorry, I haven't finished it. So I was just asking if you were happy to do it. I hadn't realised we'd actually started the meeting. So welcome to this meeting of the Transport Committee. Thank you for the karakia media. We have apologies today. Exum is Councillor Witchman is going to be late this morning. We have Deputy Mayor Anand online but video off, and apologies from Piri Galbraith. Sorry. Any declaration? Sorry, would somebody like to move that the apologies be accepted? Mayor Walker, Councillor Byrne, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Any declarations of conflict of interest this morning? Forthcoming, standing orders. Would somebody like to move that the following standing orders suspended for the duration of the meeting? That's 21.2, 21.5, 21.6. And that option C under section 22 be used for the meetings. Standing orders are recommended to be suspended to enable members to engage in discussion in a free and frank manner. Would somebody like to move that? Councillor Byrne, seconded Councillor Minahan. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Confirmation of the minutes from the 26th of February. We'll get a chance to go through those. Any corrections or issues arising from those? Somebody like to move that they are confirmed as true and correct. Councillor Greer, seconded Councillor Margaret. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? So into on page 10 of the agenda is a resolution monitoring report. And instead of going to Mr. Tate this morning, I'm going to welcome Mr. George to the table who has some wonderful news for us this morning.
We were very fortunate to hear yesterday from NZTA that they have endorsed the strategy to go forward with a 10-year plan, which is obviously a change to their standard procurement rules. So it's pretty exciting, and it's a testament to what the team have kind of done to get a document together to a level that we've been able to get something over the line. And I think I'm not quite sure, but I think it might be a first for an RCA. So something to celebrate for sure.
Thank you, Mr. George. Well done. Yeah. Any questions for Mr. George or Mr. Tate on that good news? Thank you.
Good. Just probably feel coming here. It's a really good milestone. Typically, it'll set us up really well for next days. So yeah, well done to the team.
Congratulate the whole land transport team and those surrounding the team, because that's a big tick. Thank you. So would somebody like to move that the Transport Committee notes the resolutions monitoring report? Councillor Minahan, do I have a seconder? Councillor Greer, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Then Transport Recovery Key Program Status Report, page 12. Ms. England, welcome to the table, and Ms. Australia. And Mr. Conway.
Good morning, everyone. This morning, the paper that you have in front of you is the monthly update on our land transport recovery program and the progress that has been made in the last month. Our construction on a number of sites across all three of our phases is progressing well. I would just like to draw your attention to a couple of items. Specifically, since the report was written, our forecast at completion, the total cost of all of our phase 2 and phase 3 work has changed. And we're now expecting an underspend that is slightly higher at approximately 3.7 million, rather than what was indicated around the 2.3 mark in the paper. This is due to a release of contingency on existing projects that are nearing completion and as such have less risk around them. As a result, we've sped up and put more focus on our work of where that underspend could be allocated. And we're now closer to identifying 3 Cook's Tooth Road sites that we're hoping we can get delivery underway on this financial year to spend some of that money on. We're also looking to spend some of that predicted underspend on planning for next year's programme and have commenced, as it mentions in the paper, procurement for professional service providers and further planning around the projects and the scope of the programme themselves. The other thing I'd just like to mention is in phase 1, our Fletcher's Crossing work, we're progressing well with our design options on the site there, and following presenting of our approval of our procurement plan for the stage 3 works later today, we'll be engaging with that contractor to receive their feedback in an early contractor involvement process on the design options that we've developed. Once the design option has been selected, that will mean we're able to start commencement of our consent applications to both Hawke's Bay Regional Council and CHBDC here for their various legislative work. The only other thing to mention is our Burnside Bridge project. At the time of writing the report and since our last presentation a month ago, we had planned to complete engagement with the community in Takapau just on Burnside. We're now shifting and looking at how we can consider engagement across the entire land transport recovery programme and the district as a large, so that the community gets an understanding of all of the decisions we are making, whether it's a small one lane road or serving a couple of houses, rather than just the key bridges which we had previously identified. So those are my key points raised. Happy to take the report as read and answer any questions if there are any.
Or go to questions, I'd like to congratulate you on your knowledge of the program that you're working with and the confidence with which you speak of the work that's going on out there. Thank you. The first question, Burnside Bridge, is that partial to, is that part of that we have other bridges that are we have to make decisions on, that whatever we do with Burnside will reflect on those as well? Is that part of the thinking there?
Through your chair, yes, other bridges, but also just other sites in general, landslip sites that are similar, decisions that we're working through with NZTA, where NZTA may not choose to fund them for a number of reasons. Rather than just making those decisions and staying silent on it, we would like to communicate all of those to community. Again, not just withstanding the size and scale and of the impact.
Through you, Madam Chair, we made a commitment out to community, and it's an important piece of making sure we do that. We'll be briefing a little bit later today. We've obviously got some other consultation to do in terms of local work done well later, and particularly how we choose to engage on any this afternoon.
Just one more before I go to Councillor Aitken. Seeing as you've mentioned the NZTA, that we're having to go with what they say is okay to go ahead with. Cook's Tooth Road, what's changed there with, I thought that they didn't meet NZTA requirements.
Through you, Chair, Mr. George could probably speak in more detail if needed, but my understanding is following a site visit with our investment advisor from NZTA, we've come to agreement on a number of different solutions across the road. He'd probably be able to talk about the level of service and value for money aspect that they've agreed upon.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. So Cook's Tooth, I think for a while there was a little bit of confusion around the event that the damage happened out there. I think as we've worked through things, we've gotten over the line to consider all of the weather events as one. So we're not kind of having this, oh, that was from something else. So we spent some time up there, most of a day actually up there with NZTA, probably about a fortnight ago. And we essentially, the level of service to the customer will be back to a similar level. It's the use of harder engineering and the likes of retaining walls that they're really uncomfortable with. And so it'll be more of a bench and fill kind of style in a lot of areas. So essentially, you know, removing any further material that might have been impacted by the event and then building back up. So the road essentially becomes the same as what it was before, just in different cities. So having retainment or something like that. So,
And even more important that that communication and that community discussion that you mentioned before is just continued. That's like,
My question was around Stooth Road and why using the money on Cookers Road. Is there any other, so what, I know Cookers Road is bad, but what other roads could that money have been used on?
I might defer through your chair to Mr. George, who's been in the decision seat with NZTA on what sites we have to choose from now within the programme.
that's a fair comment. I think a number of the sites that we move into here on are on our lower volume networks, and so Cookstooth kind of sits in a very similar space to a number of the other poles. It obviously has a substantial amount of damage and is still, when you look at the MCA and you test it against, you know, rationales, it still feels right that it's one of the things that we focus our attention.
If I can just add another point there, and through you, Chair, the work on Cooks Road is relatively simple. So if we're looking to finish by the end of June, we're trying to fit in the appropriate size project that we can basically do a simple design on and then just get on with it and finish it. So there are some other works that would be more complex that would require more design. So we'd defer them to the next 2 years.
Councillor Monahan.
Yes, just you brought up consultation, so in regards to Burnside Road and Bridge and other sites, when do you anticipate to we will go out and consult with the community? What time frame?
Through your chair, the planning is in very early stages at the moment, but indications are that it will happen before the end of the financial year.
We've got some we've got some tentative dates that we're just working through with the other programs. So May and June are the very May substantially.
Correct to say, I think that the initial planning may have been that something would happen out there, physically happen out there before the end of the financial year, and that is now off the table. Right.
Through your chair, referring to the demolition of Burnside Bridge, yes, that is now correct. We want to ensure that we have sufficient time to complete the necessary community engagement. And we felt that being able to do that and then demolish the bridge all before our end of year funding deadline was just not practical. So we're looking now to push the work that will ultimately still need to be completed into next year's programme. And that's another reason that we'll see a change in our predicted underspend, not spending the funding we had originally intended to demolish the bridge.
Through you, Madam Chair, there's one other element, and that's the fish spawning timetable is we can't operate within the river channel as well. That shuts the window down as well.
And just reiterating that is if the decision is to do it, not when. Any further questions for the team, Councillor Margaret?
Yes. With reference to the Allsop Road one, do we enter into an agreement with the landowner to retire that slip? Because if part of the plan is to stabilise it through planting, we don't want a mob of cattle going through there or anything. So do we enter into those agreements?
Through your chair, yes, we have actually just finalised this week the agreement with the Elsthorpe Road landowner. The area will be fenced and planted, and the drainage, there is an easement to allow council to continue to access and maintain that as well.
With Fletcher's Crossing, the 3.8 million is stage 3, 1.5 in that 3.8.
Through your chair, yes, stage 3 is within that budget.
Councillor Baird.
We're working within strict timeframes, and a lot of the work has to be completed by the 30th of June. And when we're working to those timeframes, there's time pressure, obviously. And I think we talk about suboptimal work due to the season. There's a lot of commentary at the moment in the media and things about substandard work, not necessarily in Central Hawke's Bay, but on the networks. I'm just wondering, do we have a percentage of how much rework we have to do on some of the work we've been doing?
Through your chair, it's not something that we've tracked and recorded as a program as a whole before, that we utilize our consultant partners, Stantec, to undertake our quality assurance on all of the work our contractors are undertaking. The aim obviously is that we have active communication and enough work going on with those groups before they get to the point of completing it at a substandard level. But I can't say that it would absolutely never happen.
So we're finding that because we were having to work to time pressure, we're not actually seeing an additional amount of rework being done.
Through your chair, not at the moment. Nothing's been reported of that nature.
I just want to talk about the program risk analysis, because there's one that is named as residual risk is still being extreme, and that is risk of significant injury or death from people ignoring temporary traffic management. And it's on page 17 of the agenda, listed as, even though we've got some management in place, that residual risk is still extreme. I just want to understand whether we have, do we have reports of accidents which have prompted for that thinking to still be at extreme, or is it, what's prompting that to be like that?
Through your chair, so the likelihood is probably the thing that has decreased over time with the installation of our more permanent traffic management measures on a lot of those sites. But with the consequence remaining at 5 as catastrophic due to the significant injury or death, it's the likelihood would need to drop very low for the extreme residual risk level to drop down to a high or lower.
Have we got evidence that people are disrespecting the traffic management in a way that makes that likely? Like what's the evidence of that analysis?
Through your chair, I think the evidence as such probably not on like specific instances or specific sites, more just a general trend of behavior across not just the unfunded and sites that aren't being worked upon, but also sites that our contractors are actively working on, and the behavior that they see with public complying to even speed restrictions on temporary traffic management. So no specific instances, just a general theme of behavior. We can definitely consider reassessing whether it should be an unlikely or rare likelihood for that risk.
Or are there other things that we could do to help with that mitigation? I mean, there was on the radio this morning, a police report of someone who's had their license suspended for 28 days because they'd been caught going 50 k's an hour over the limit. And there was reference to all of the temporary traffic management in the district. And so that kind of active engagement with the enforcement agent as the police, for instance, is something that, we could actually list as a mitigation, as something that we use to mitigate that risk even more, rather than just the traffic management.
Some correspondence with local law enforcement with issues on a couple of our rural roads, asking about how long that temporary traffic management's going to be there. Is the speed double checking about the speed restrictions. Would you like to comment?
Yeah, so through you, Madam Chair, I think the Mayor is highlighting issues that we're all aware of, and there has been anecdotal evidence of those, and we get some of that feedback through some of our engagement with our contractors on site. I think the point is raising is we should just up our game, and I think we should reconnect with the law enforcement and just have another word to them about it, just to show that we're doing everything we can.
We slightly more clear, Mr. Tate. Do we still have the level of service measurement that says eroding any crashes that are caused by the condition of the road?
What level of service in the
Councillor Aitken.
Talking about the safety aspects and that, and look, I actually agree that we have to we don't want anyone injured in that, but what I've heard around the district and around New Zealand is that people are sick and tired of temporary signs that stay up for days and months with nothing happening, road cones everywhere with nothing happening, so they ignore them after a while. And I think that's the biggest issue, that we've got all these temporary spots that seem to sit there And I think we need to go back to our contractors and say that if you're not working on that site, please remove everything, so people actually know what is being worked on, what isn't. Because I think that's the biggest problem. People are sick of just seeing crap lying around.
Skillet.
Yeah, through you, Chair, I think there's an education piece there. If you look at the works on the state highway recently, for example, contractors are not working. But it is best practice to allow traffic to bed chip seal for a number of days. And that's why, you know, it sits there at 30 to 50K, because if a motorcycles to go through there, for example, at 100K, they would probably come off.
Yeah.
No, I get that. I'm talking about ones where you actually see them sitting there, and there's been classic examples on Tico Road even. You've got cones up, 30K signs up, nothing's happened for 3 or 4 weeks or 5 weeks. That's what I'm talking about. Those things have got to be removed. So the day they finish, the day the project's done and the chip's bedded in, it's got to be removed. Otherwise people start ignoring it. Yeah. And that's where we're getting, I think.
Sometimes we've had so many issues with our roads that it's best perhaps to highlight that there's something wrong with the road, so that at least there's.
You're getting the wrong conversation.
England? Sorry. We'll
The
just go to Miss
conversation is you need to take it.
Aiken, you asked your question. Miss England wants to.
And you
answer.
interrupted.
She wants to answer. Let her, please.
Through you, Chair, the relation to the recovery sites in particular, late last year, we worked with our maintenance contractor Downer to go across a number of the sites and remove that temporary traffic management. So where possible, we've put it up onto permanent signage. It might still indicate in regards to the colours of it that it is temporary and not permanent signage, but it is in a way that we have tried to remove as much of the cones being blown over or knocked over, signs not standing up, so that it's clearly visible this is going to be here for a while, because we understand the frustration, especially when the traffic management is there for a long period of time.
Is there a way, Mr. Kinvig or Mr. Stroud, to look at our temporary traffic management and figure out exactly what is out there?
If I can, yeah, through you, Chair. I think what we'll do is listening to Councillor Aiken's feedback here, which is really useful and valid. I think what we'll do is we'll just get up on the network again with our maintenance contractor to make sure that what we've got out there is still needs to be out there, and if it's not, then we'll remove it. So we'll do that.
Thank you. That's what I was
Something
asking.
back to this.
And we'll
just
bring
to-
that back to you in terms of what our observations. Yeah, it's a valid thing. It's something that NZTA is focused on as well, because it's a common issue across the country. So yeah, we'll get onto it.
So Ben.
Just an observation, a lot of the telematics that people have in their vehicles and trucks and heavy vehicles and things don't actually pick up on the more permanent temporary.
Semi-permanent.
Yeah, semi-permanent, that's a better one. So I'm just wondering, I don't know how you communicate with the likes of E-Road or NavMan or those sorts of things, but how can, you know, maybe there is a way that we could actually warn people that, you know, because you could be driving along in 100K, normally 100K area, but suddenly because of the it suddenly drops to 30 because of something. But you aren't aware. I don't know. That's something.
A speed sign that they need to look at on the side of the road and slow down.
Yeah, well, that's true too.
Mr. Kinvig.
Yeah, just through you, Chair. I think it's just a good reminder as well to kind of keep this, you know, within kind of context of our network. We've got a low volume network. So relative to other networks, the risk is relatively low, but it's still possible, and the consequences are significant if it does happen. But, you know, we do have a low volume network, so we're just going to make sure that we're right sized in terms of our approach to that.
As Councillor Aikens alluded to, we don't want people to get so used to it, they start ignoring it when it is so dangerous for them to do so.
So,
Any further questions for the team?
I don't have a question. I've just got a little statement. Driving to the conditions of the roads. Whether you've got a sign up saying 30K or whether you've got a sign up going 120K, drive to the conditions of the roads. And I know as a real person, we put our foot down. It doesn't matter. You know, we will put our foot down, but we have to. You know, and I suppose it's time now that we start to educate our people into driving to the conditions of the road. Yeah, so that's just my 2 cents.
There might be $1 worth there, not just 2 cents. Any further questions for the team? So Ben,
Just a question actually, because the Alsop Road, just the risk is highlighted as, Civil has donated an additional 200 plants. I'm just wondering why that's a risk. I think that's fantastic. It probably should be celebrated.
Through your chair, I think it's probably a mitigation, although it's sitting next to the risk category. Yes, it is a very positive thing. And in fact, just to add to that as well, in the recent week, we've been in communication with the principal at Elsthorpe School, and we're planning for some of that planting to be done in partnership with the kids there. So they're going to come along to the site and help with that.
Fantastic.
another big tick. Thank you. That's great news. No further questions for the team. Thank you. Any further comments, or would somebody like to move councillor Greer? Oh, sorry, do you comment or?
I would like to make a comment, but
Okay, cool. So you move, and do I have a seconder? Mayor Walker, would you like to speak to that?
just like to acknowledge, I've been out and about a fair bit of St Hawke's Bay in the last month, and it hasn't gone unnoticed by a lot of the community of how much work has been done on our roads, and plainly obvious. And another observation I'm seeing is more sensible use on some of traffic management, which is great to see, and keep it up, team. It's awesome.
Ditto. I was going to say exactly the same thing, councillor, so well said.
Any further comments on reports? It's on page 112. So councillor Greer has moved, seconded Mayor Walker, that the Transport Committee notes the Cyclone Recovery Roading Update Report. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. So we go now to the date of the next meeting, which is the next Transport Committee be held on the 24th of April, 2025. So moved. Would you like to second? Councillor Witchman? All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. And just we're going into public excluded business now. That recommendation is that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of the meeting. We've got a public excluded resolution monitoring report, a procurement plan for Fletcher's Crossing stage 3, and from there we will close the meeting once it's done. So this is our public part of this meeting finished. Thank you for joining us. See you on the 24th of April or at the this afternoon's meeting.